Okay, Mel Choyce is with me. She works for Automattic. She's a WordPress core contributor. She was a co-lead in the 4.9 release, designed the 2017 theme, has worked on WordPress.com, and even did a mini presentation at last year's State of the Word at WordCamp US. So thanks for taking the time, Mel.
Hello.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you've worked on with Automattic in the past, and then kind of take us through what you're working on now.
Sure. So when I first started at Automattic, I was on a team called Triton, which worked on site management and also the reader tool. So at that point, we were working on all the parts of WordPress.com that weren't WP admin.
Mm-hmm.
And which is funny because that's like most of WordPress.com now. And so this was also the team that originally started working on Calypso. So I was on it for a little while we were doing some initial concept work, prototypes, and then I transitioned to a different team, Team 51. It's kind of like a mix between the theme team and VIP.
So all these teams have code names?
Oh yeah, every team has a code name, yeah. And they're honestly, they're just getting more and more like out there the more names we use up.
Nice.
Yeah, so this team was almost like a mini agency inside Automattic, where we would work with some of our partners to create like microsites for different reasons. And so it was the closest to like web design that I was able to get in Automattic. So that was a pretty fun team.
So you said microsites for just WordPress products or Automattic products like Jetpack, that kind of stuff? Or
so, for example, we worked with, I guess they weren't always micro. We had some pretty big projects. We worked with the Freer and Sackler Art Gallery in the Smithsonian, and we helped them redesign their new site. And,
so it was kind of like an agency.
Yeah, it was pretty close to an agency, but it's always shifting. So the work we did was really flexible.
Gotcha. And tell me a little bit more about Calypso. I feel like that made a splash, and I haven't heard as much about it recently.
So at this point, Calypso just is WordPress.com.
Yeah.
So when you're starting a new site on .com, when you're connecting a Jetpack site, all the management tools now, that's all just Calypso. And so really, like, when we think about Calypso now, we're really just like, what are the things that we can build on WordPress.com to help you make a better website?
Right. But there was a way that you could connect it to .org sites, right?
Yeah, through Jetpack. So if you use Jetpack, now you're connecting to .com, and so you could actually manage your site in Calypso if you'd like.
Do you have any idea what the user base is for that in that use case?
I really don't. Jetpack, the Jetpack division is one of the only places I haven't really spent a lot of time in Automattic.
Okay, fair enough. So let's move to the 4.9 release. So you were a co-lead in the 4.9 release focusing on customization. Is that right?
Yeah, so me and Weston Reuter co-led the release. And we also did tried to get a lot of small iterations into 4.8, which was a pretty small release. And then for 4.9, we shifted our focus to doing a lot more like bigger new features. So for example, we added drafting and scheduling to the customizer. So now you could draft changes and then publish them later, or schedule them to be published. So
yeah, and then that's what your little mini presentation during State of the Word was about. That was a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, it's definitely our headline feature for the release.
Yeah, so tell me how do you get chosen for that? So you work for Automattic, so I feel like there has to be some input from Automattic on who gets to be a full-time core contributor, because you have a whole bunch of other projects. So Automattic has to, at some level, be involved in that decision making, right?
Well, it comes down to really to Matt and who he wants to have of his employees working on core full time. So we have a couple teams at Automattic now that are all just full time contributors. We actually have a .organization division, which I'm in on the Apollo team. So There's a couple folks from a different team, IO, that are working on Gutenberg full-time, for example. So Apollo is right now focused on, I guess, just general core contributing. We have a new team that is going to be focused on doing meta stuff. So if you've been looking at MetaTrack at all in the past couple of weeks, you've seen Konstantin Oberlin has closed like 300 or something tickets, like a ridiculous number of tickets. And he's able to do that because he's working on it now full time.
Gotcha. And so you said that it's ultimately Matt's decision. Do people raise their hand and lobby to be part of core, or does Matt say, like, I liked your work in this other codenamed group, well, let's move you to codename Apollo?
It depends. Could be either or. For a while we were doing rotations, so if you were interested in working on core for a little while, you could put your hand up for like a 3-month rotation, a 6-month rotation. Mm-hmm. We haven't done as much of those now that we actually have more teams contributing full-time to core, but it's these teams are really Automattic's 5 for the future contributions.
Say that again?
5 for the future?
5 for the future.
So I think it was either 2016 or 2015 where Matt announced kind of a 5 for the future endeavor where he was encouraging people in the WordPress space to donate 5% of their either their time or their employees' time or resources to WordPress core.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, although in terms of leading a release, Automattic has no say in that. It's really just all Matt from the WordPress.org side.
It's Matt, but not in his role in Automattic.
Yeah. For example, my co-lead Weston works for XWP, right. And many of the release leads that we've had in the past have come from a variety of different companies or self-sponsored.
Yeah.
So you don't have to work for Automattic to lead a release.
Right. So in your case, did you want to work on core? Was that something where you were like, I see a need for X feature, or I really want to work on this?
Yeah, so the team that I was on before Apollo was focused on customization in the customizer. Mm-hmm. And so when core started looking at these 3 new focuses, the editor, customization, and the API, it made sense for me at that point, since I had been working on the customizer already, to transition to doing it full-time for core. Especially since we decided within Automattic, we're not going to focus on really doing a lot with the customizer because we're going to start working on it in core. And so all of those changes are going to eventually cascade to us. So it doesn't really make sense to split them off just yet before, all these new features are coming in.
Gotcha. So, was your work on the customizer, did that start in the .com side? Because I kind of remember
it did start on the .com side, and actually some of the things my team worked on did make it into core. It's like the edit buttons in the customizer where you can click and then edit them in the sidebar. That was a project that we had done on WordPress.com, and then saw a need for it in core, proposed it, and got it merged in.
Yeah. So what's that process like? So, and how often does that happen? How often are you working on something for .com and then like you say, okay, this could easily be merged into core, or this should be merged into core at the least?
Not very often. So it's happened a couple times throughout WordPress's history. And it's happened with other plugins and companies as well. In this case, I was chatting over the feature with Helen Hossandi, and so she really was shepherding that into core at the time. And so, yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact context. I think there was an existing ticket that wanted to get at kind of the same feature, and so we were like, oh hey, we've been working on this on .com. Pretty similar to what's being proposed. Here's our GitHub repo. Pretty sure that's what it was.
And so does that mean, was it a plugin that was automatically added to .com?
Yeah, okay. I think that's how a lot of the features work. Anything that extends core gets added as a plugin.
Right.
But that whole architecture I find very confusing. So
it's not like you're doing like 2 parallel. There's a .org version of WordPress and a .com version of WordPress. It's like the core is the same.
Yeah, the core is the same, and then we extend it in different ways.
Right.
And then now we have Calypso on top of it.
Right. Right. Um, so I feel like your profile has been increasing at Automattic lately. I remember 2016, the WordCamp US, you had a great presentation on US and or a great presentation on UX in WordPress.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my testing one.
Right. Yeah. Some bizarre test results that were pretty unexpected. Um, Definitely recommend finding that for anyone who's interested in UX. Again, it's the WordCamp US 2016 Mel Choice video. So
Yeah,
look
and it
that
was
up.
a flash talk, so I think it was only like 10 minutes long. So it was a
Which
fun
was
presentation to give. That was when I was on the customization team.
right,
So,
right. Um, and then since then, you've shifted to core. Um, and you brought some of those customization changes into core, and now you're continuing to work on the customizer.
mhm.
But you've gotten to the point where you're even involved in delivering the state of the word. How do you how do you how do you think that you've grown into that role?
Well, it's definitely taken a lot of years. I started contributing around 2011, 2012. So it's been at least a good 6, 7 years now that I've been contributing. And a lot of it really comes down to like decisions are made by the people who show up. So the more consistent you are, the more reliable you are, the more responsibility you're going to be given.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was given commit, so like commit to WordPress core at, gosh, which US? It was either 15 or 16. I don't even remember at this point. I'm not good at years. So, and that was a new thing that we were trying out with core, was giving designers commit just as a signal, like, hey, this is the only way we can signal that you have the trust of the development team.
So describe what that is. What does being given commit mean?
Yeah. So on a technical side of things, I can take code and I can put it in WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than just like making a patch, which is like a little fix file, I can actually put that in the WordPress software itself.
Right.
And so that's given to contributors who the development team know that they can trust, that have been contributing for a long time. In the case of designers, they weren't really, they made it clear they weren't expecting us to do a lot of committing, but it was really the only way that we had at the time to signal like, hey, like you matter just as much as the developers in the project.
So did you feel like a second-class citizen as a designer like 4 years ago? Has there been a focus shift that's more design-based recently?
I think there's been a huge shift towards putting design at the table and at the beginning of the process in WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
That really started with a conscious effort from Matt. So it came really from the top down. Part of that was I was the deputy design lead for 4.6, I think 4.6, 4.5 or 4.6. And then Hugo Beta was the design deputy for the release after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of a new thing too, having a design decision maker for a release. And now with the focuses, both the editor and the customization focus have a design co-lead.
Right.
So, it signals that design is just as important as development.
Right.
So it's pretty great.
And those are design heavy features. Well,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
customizer and the editor are very design heavy. And then the API.
Yeah, different kind of design, but
we'll see when that gets its moment in the sun.
yeah, I actually think that Gutenberg has been very good for the API because in a lot of ways it's been driving like, okay, here's the parts of the API we don't have yet that we know we need, and here's the use case in which we need them. So
yeah,
I think they've been pretty symbiotic there.
So do you think that in the next 3 years of WordPress, the API is going to be used a lot more and in a lot different use cases than it is now?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Especially with a company like HumanMade, really pushing a lot of the API work. They've done so much really cool work in the like the agency space,
Right.
that they're really pushing the boundaries of what we can do with the API, with JavaScript in WordPress. So I think with them so focused on that, and the use cases that are going to come up on the core side with customization and Gutenberg, we're really going to see the API, honestly, I think get better. That said, I don't know a lot about APIs.
Fair enough. Are you concerned that there's going to be a fracturing of the admin experience? So I feel like it's both a feature and maybe a threat of the API is that like people are going to be able to create their own experiences that are completely, disconnected from the WordPress admin experience. And so it seems like there's at least the potential for several different kinds of admin. And then that's even exacerbated further by Gutenberg. Certain plugins aren't going to be Gutenberg compatible and will, cause the disabling of Gutenberg. So then there's going to be the old editor experience, the Gutenberg experience, plus whatever, third party admin experiences are developed. What do you think about that?
So I definitely think that it's a possibility, but I don't think it's super probable, if only because it took WordPress.com a year or 2 years really to get Calypso into like feature parity with core. And that was with a team of a lot of people working on it full time, being sponsored by a company. So honestly, I don't know that most people have the kind of resources and time needed to really redesign and fork WordPress.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible, especially I see a really good opportunity for app developers to build on the WordPress API to make like microblogging experiences or like really specific targeted blogging experiences. But I see those as being a really good benefit to the API rather than necessarily like fracturing the WordPress community, being like a really nice addition to it.
Yeah. So limited, I guess what you're saying is you see limited admin experiences being created that interact with the API and
more than like a second version of WordPress.
Yeah. That sounds like it could come to pass. Can you describe at all some changes to the API that have been made, that have been prompted by Gutenberg?
I can't at all because I don't know them, but I've heard people talk about them. If you go through the GitHub, the Gutenberg GitHub issues, there should be probably some open and closed ones that have asked about API features.
Yeah.
I know there's been a couple points where we've been like Gutenberg's been like, oh, we need to do this thing, but in order to do that, we need the API. For example, if we're to make a menu widget, so I've been talking about this. My girlfriend is working on making a block out of the menu widget, and so she was like, I could do it, but I need to write my own API endpoints because they don't exist in core yet. So stuff like that, where we're finding a lot of the edges of the API, and I especially think that's going to be important once we do start looking at more of the customization side of things, menus, widgets, etc.
Yeah. So from a customizer standpoint, have you figured out some ways that the API is lacking? Do you have a list of things that I need all of these things to be in the API in order to really make the customizer experience that I want?
So I'm pretty sure Weston has a list, but it would be good to figure that out on the earlier side of the customization focus, looking at Gutenberg, what endpoints we need, what we need to, like if we need to have anything updated or changed to fit the use case that we have. So that'll probably be a conversation that happens on the technical side in the next, couple months more. Not sure.
What's your vision for how Gutenberg blocks will play inside of the customizer?
So I feel like that's an interesting assumption because you're thinking that Gutenberg will be put inside the customizer rather than maybe the
Um,
customizer will be put inside Gutenberg.
Well, so
Yeah.
correct the record.
So there's a lot of thinking and a lot of work we need to do before I'm at a point where I can really even say anything with authority, just because we don't know the best way forward yet. I've started working on page templates. So during Matt's State of the Word and Matthias's presentation in it, he showcased page templates for custom post types, which were pretty awesome. And so we've been fleshing out the idea of page templates, and so like page templates being a collection of blocks. The past couple weeks I've been looking at a UI for that, so how you could select a page template and then actually be able to preview it in the page and then like fill out placeholder blocks, and then how you could change that template in the future or whatever, or even eventually make your own page templates.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of the immediate thing that we're working on, that is starting to tie together the editor and customization, because it's definitely like kind of in between the two. So and then I've also started looking at some global blocks, so like a site title block, a logo block, header image block, and so there's an experimental PR for that in the Gutenberg GitHub repo that does like a very like first draft implementation of these like shared like template blocks essentially.
Gotcha. And PR is pull request.
Yes. Sorry.
So just trying to cover at least some of the jargon. This is a very jargony conversation.
It is. It totally is. Yeah.
But I'll try and cover little bits of it here and there. So that's great. I mean, we've kind of shifted away from talking about influencer topics to the customizer and Gutenberg, but I feel like if I have you, I might as well ask some of these questions. But I do want to shift back a little bit, because you've been an organizer of the Boston WordPress Meetup group for at least a few years, right?
Yeah, a few years. Pretty much since I moved to Boston, I started getting involved.
Right. Yeah. So I've been seeing you there for a while now, and I'm just wondering, what motivated you to get involved in that Meetup group, and how have you found like balancing the time that it takes to volunteer for this Meetup group with like what you're getting back from it, if you're even trying to get anything back from it, or maybe it's just pure volunteerism.
Yeah. Before I moved to Boston, I helped co-organize the Western Massachusetts WordPress meetups. And so that was because we had a lot of people in the area who were using WordPress, but like nobody really got together to talk about it. And so we had a super small little meetup out there in Western Massachusetts. And so when I moved to Boston, I was like, I really want to continue doing this. And so when there was an opportunity to kind of step up into volunteering for the Meetup group in Boston, I was like, yeah, absolutely, I want to do this. And it's really just like a hobby, like organizing stuff, like event type things. But I've definitely had to step back a little bit in the past like 2 years or so, just because of my like work obligations.
Right.
So
how much time does it take to like really be involved in the organization of the Meetup group?
Yeah, so the Meetup group itself, probably a couple hours a month. It's more so if you're the one who's making sure we have the space or finding speakers, and so I haven't really been doing a lot of that stuff lately.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it seems like I went to the last meetup, and looks like the space that you guys have been using for years is not as reliable anymore. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a shame. We had such a good space when we were at the Nerd Center, but I think the rules around booking space in advance changed. So there would be no guarantee that we'd be able to get the space for the dates that we want.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been a little bit like wandering since
Yeah.
we weren't able to do Nerd anymore.
Yeah.
So if anyone is watching this from the Boston community and you have an office that you would like to volunteer, get in touch with us at meetup.com.
Nice. So do you feel like you've gotten, what do you feel like you've gotten from being a co-organizer of the Meetup group? Like, what has it opened doors for you? Does it just feel good? Is it just that you like organizing?
Yeah, so I think different members of the team get different things from it. In my case, it really is just like I like volunteering. I've met a lot of really amazing people through the Meetup group, and I've like definitely deepened some connections through it. So in that way, it's helped me network with new people. So the WordCamp we also run is pretty much the same organizer group. Has like I think really helped me meet a lot of new people, have more opportunities to both see really cool people speak locally and also get a chance to speak as well. So I've spoken at both the Meetup and the WordCamp a couple times. So yeah, it just really is like, it opens up a lot of opportunity for, I would say, networking.
Yeah.
And a chance to improve my speaking skills.
Yeah.
Which
Cool.
you can do without being an organizer, but
when I've spoken at WordCamps and meetups, I feel like it helps. It gives someone a reason to come talk to you. So if you're a little bit more introverted like me, it helps that someone else is approaching you to ask questions rather
I'm
than
so bad at the opposite side, like the going and approaching people.
Right,
I'm really bad at the actual like going and meeting people part of networking. So
yeah,
absolutely agree with you there.
I hate that part, and so
some people are really, really good at it, and I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, same. So we're approaching a half hour. What are you excited to work on next?
Definitely Gutenberg. So now that 4.9 is done, I've really shifted towards the parts of customization that start to overlap with what Gutenberg's doing right now in the editor focus. So like page templates. I've been working on that since the beginning of January. Hoping that we'll have something we can start testing soon. But I'm, trying a bunch of different things out right now, and then seeing, what I think is going to stick. And then definitely want to test out a lot of really like rough prototypes soon. Really hoping in the next, honestly, week or two that
Cool.
we can start getting to that phase. And then, it's going to be really exciting and really difficult and really fun when we start looking at the broader context of customization. So editing your whole site, the layout, the design. So that's going to be a really big challenge this year.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see where we go with Gutenberg, because the more I use it and the more I work on it, the more I think it has the potential to really bring WordPress forward in a way that we haven't really moved forward in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with.
Yeah, me too.
So where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Easiest way is Twitter. So I'm at Mel Choyce on Twitter. If you want to talk about core design, you can find me on the WordPress Slack. Pretty much on Mel Choyce everywhere. So
nice.
And I'll probably be at all the Northeast WordCamps this year. Or
Great.
At least as many as I can get myself to.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the time. That was
thank you.
Fun conversation.
I love talking about WordPress. So.
All right. Thanks.
Cool.